So this is our job estimate and revenue dashboard. This is designed to allow you to generate estimates and invoices pretty quickly, allow you to capture all your material, overhead, and labor costs, and even manage, each job, track each job all the way to completion and final invoice from the customer and get paid from the customer. So I want to do a quick tutorial and overview of kind of how it works and how to use it. So we'll go right to the dashboard. It's kind of where you're going to start. So from the top, you'll be able to choose your currency. I've got 5 options up here, depending on where you're at in the world. So the next thing you'll do is you're going to add in a profit margin goal. So I've got it set to 15%. You can set it to 20, 25, 50, kind of whatever you want. The profit margin in this case will be added to your total labor and overhead cost within each job. So for material, you will have a different markup tool that you can use within each job tab. So again, this profit margin only gets added to your labor and overhead cost. So next, you're going to add in your business name. Your business name will populate throughout the workbook in different locations, and you'll see that as we go through the workbook. So next, we'll do the supplier list. This is just a real simple list. You got name, address, profession, contact information for your vendors, suppliers, subcontractors. This table is optional. Again, it's just a simple and easy to use visual for tracking some basic contact information. However, the company name, will turn into a drop-down menu in a couple locations, so it does have some additional value outside of this tab, which I'll show you in a minute. So on the material summary tab, this is one of the first examples of that supplier list, that company name. So you're going to set up your materials you use within each, within your jobs, generally speaking. And I've got up to 150 rows in here for different materials. You can certainly add more, you can insert more. But where the vendor and supplier comes into play is you basically can choose if you set up a specific material, you can choose which vendor that's assigned to. So for each material, you're going to obviously put in a material description, and you're going to list the unit of the material. So if it's a plywood sheet, or piece of plywood, it's going to be sheet, can of stain, etc. These are just examples. And then you're going to put in your typical received quantity. So basically, how do you purchase the material? Do you purchase them one at a time? Do you purchase in bundles? And what's your cost associated with that? So that's the cost column here. And what that's going to do is when you put it in this way, is in the way you pay for it, and your total cost, it's going to break it down to a cost per unit. So in this case, you buy 10 sheets at a time. I'm paying $800, therefore it's $80 per plywood birch sheet, per sheet of birch plywood. Now this list, the material inventory list and the cost, will directly pull into your job estimate tabs as you're generating each estimate. So your business overhead, I've got some examples in here, but shop electricity, tools and equipment, business licensing, you can have rent, you can have people's salaries, anything that your overall overhead to run the business. This isn't labor cost. This isn't, if you got installers that are doing some of the work, you're paying them by hour, that's going to be covered differently. This is simply your business overhead. And what it's going to do is, as you pay, we'll do an example. So tools and equipment, let's say for tools and equipment, I spend $150 a month. So that's 12 times a year. I spend $150 for a total of $1,800 a year. Now, through all of my overhead costs, I'm going to get a total sum down here at the bottom. And that sum, so let's see up here to the top left, total annual estimated jobs. So I've got it set to 48. Let's say you do 3 a week and it's really 150. What's going to happen is your total overhead cost are going to get allocated over every job you do. So you'll see overhead allocation per job. In this case, it's $60. So that means that $60 is being added to every time I create a job estimate, and that overhead cost is automatically being added to that job. And this allows you to properly cover your business cost as you go through the year. Now, labor rate, this ultimately comes down to a rate per man hour that you're going to charge for each job. Now, the way I've got it broken down is you got roles, so you can put your different role in. What's their hourly rate? I've got 20 or so rows in here. You can definitely insert more in this case. But you've got an hourly rate, and then their typical annual hours that they're going to work, and that's going to give you an annualized cost for each person. And basically, so what this sheet will spit out is you have your total annualized cost divided by your total annual hours, and it's going to give you your average rate per man hour. So some people are going to make more, some make less, but you're going to get an average cost per man hour that you're going to use within each job tab, which I'll get to. And actually, we'll do that next. So we'll jump right into the job tab. This is how you generate an estimate, how you build all the details for each job. And we're just going to work our way down. So job status in this case would be, so I'll cover this more in a minute when we get back to it, but you got estimate, scheduled, invoiced, or complete. And I'll explain what those are in a minute. So job name, customer phone, customer address, email address. So basically all your customer information. And then you're going to get into time and labor. So total man hours required. So you'll see that hourly labor rate was $24 an hour is what we're charging. And let's say it takes 2 guys and they got to work on it for 4 hours each. And so it's a total of 8 man hours. And then your labor total for this job would be $192. Next you have, let's go to material list and then we'll come back to the material markup. So on your material cost breakdown, you can pick your supplier. Again, it's just a visual. It doesn't add much value outside of that. But then you're picking your item. So I can go through and select anything that's in my material list. I can populate it. As an example, I'll show you how that works. So 8x4, a granite sheet. It's going to pull it in. Hey, that's a slab. And then I can put count in here. I can put, okay, I'm going to use 2 of those. And it's going to generate these costs. This went red for a reason, which I'll get back to, but it's going to automatically pull in your total cost for materials. So we'll take that back out. So down at the bottom, you've got your total material cost for this job, which is $811. Now, you've got a material markup, which I've got set currently at 15%. So that means it's on top of the $811 base cost of the material, it's going to add the additional 15%. So what that looks like as I go through this, so you've got a kind of a summary table up here to the top right. So materials, $811. You've got a material tax rate. So, services are generally non-taxable, materials are. So you're going to add, you can set this to whatever you want, but generally you're going to be 8 to 10% on materials, depending on where you're at, which state you're in. So material tax, I've got at 10%. So that means my material tax is 81. The material markup is 121, and that's 100. So that's basically 15% of the 811. And then I've got my overhead costs that came from my overhead tab at $60.83. My labor total was 192. So there's my labor, 192. And then my profit percentage. So the profit percentage again is the 15% profit goal on top of your labor and overhead. So it was only $37.93 in this case. There's your 15%. And then you get your total job price, which is $1304.51. So your base cost in this case was $1144, and then with profit margin, and actually it's your profit and your material markup, is your $1304.51. So that's kind of where, so this is the base cost to cover the cost of the job, and this is where you want to be and what you want to charge the customer. Now that's within each job. Now we'll go through, let's talk a little bit about kind of how the job status works. So you've got a target due date So what I'm going to do is, to try to best explain this, is I'm going to try to remember how some of that worked, but if I take that out, take that out, take that out. So let's go to estimate. So right now it's showing that this is set to an estimate. So I'm just generating an estimate for the customer. So now if I go to customer invoice, this is an automated tab, and it says invoice, but it's actually your estimate and your invoice. So I'm going to go, so I pull in job one, estimate, large granite table. You can put a discount in here, and you're going to notice say date completed, customer estimate only, and it simply has the customer information in it. You'll notice it has the job up here to the top right, and then it's just got a little bit of a detailed breakdown of the materials, but there's no dollar amount on the material, right? So you're just simply materials and labor total. If you add a discount, if I change that to 0, right, that's going to be the 1304. So we'll put 5% in there if you wanted to give them a discount for any reason. And then you're going to have, so this is the estimate. So you send the estimate out, and they say, okay, I want to do the job. Then I'm going to go back to the job, and I'm going to say, okay, now I'm going to set a target due date. So in this case, it's April. So I'm going to put target due date of, so now I'm going to say, let's switch it to schedule. All right, so now I want to schedule the job. So you notice my target due date went red, it went pink. It's just flagging me to tell me that I need to add, now that I'm saying I'm scheduling the job, I need to add in a date. So let's say 4/15, and this date matters, and I'll show you why in just a couple minutes here. So next, let's say I've done the job now, and now I've charged the customer. I want to charge the customer. So actual price, customer charged. Actually, let's come back. So we'll do, when was the job complete? Let's say I actually did it and completed it on 4/14. So now I'm going to say, okay, I invoiced the customer. And now this went red. It's saying what price are you charging the customer? So if I go back to customer invoice, now it says invoice and no longer says estimate. I've got a date completed in here, and my total is the 1239.28. So that's what I'm charging the customer. So now I can go back to, let's just make this 0. Let's do 2%. So 1278. So I'll go back to that job. Actual price, I'll say 1278 for simplicity. So now everything looks right. And when they finally pay you, you can go back and tag it as complete. Now how this will look and why all this matters is, for one, when it's scheduled, so we'll go back to scheduled, that was April. So if I go to, you've got a calendar in here, job calendar, 2025, I'll change the date, and I'll change this to April. See that job? 4/15. So when you put in, for every job, when you set a target due date, it will pull into your job calendar based on that date, and it'll pull the customer name in. So this is kind of a quick visual that you can print. I'll show you that how that looks. So it's literally ready to print, 8.5 by 11. You can print it out and use it and manage your jobs on a monthly basis. It's just a quick, easy visual. Now, additionally, as you're using this job status, you have a job summary. And in this job summary, you have estimate, scheduled, invoiced, and complete. So you'll notice job 1 is currently set to scheduled. So if I go back to job 1 and I change this to complete, I'll go back to my job summary and bam, complete. So this is your job summary, is kind of like your hub for managing all your jobs. It's a quick reference. You've got your customer information in here, your base cost, what you charge the customer, your net profit for that job, and then also your total material and total labor cost, as well as some of the other key dates. Now, and if I go back to the job, yeah, okay, so that's still in the job calendar. That's doing what it's supposed to do. So now let's talk about the actual price you charge versus your base cost. So if I go back to my dashboard now, so February 24 to January 25, so I'm going to change my date. So on this dashboard, I can plug in any given month So let's do 06 slash, I'm going to follow this 2024. So I'm following my month, year, format. And this just sets a 12-month trend, a 12-month period for these three charts. So when I hit enter, so now April at 1278 with 133 profit. That was what I charged, so that's my total revenue, and that's my profit for that job. And if I go back to job summary, you'll see that's my net profit. That was base cost and then 1278. And again, if I were to, that was based on the, that 15%. So obviously, if you want more revenue, more profit, you're going to want to change these numbers to reflect that. So let's go back to the job. So I've covered all the dates. I've covered how the material table works, the markup. We've got the invoice covered. Job summary, calendar. All right, so the only thing we really haven't covered is how to create a new job estimate. So this is really, really simple. So I'm going to right click on my job template, move or copy, create a copy, and I'm going to scroll down to, I'm just putting it somewhere close to this job template. So you'll see it drop in here, job template number 2. And I'm just going to name it the next sequential number. So if you look over here at J1, job 2, and then, so next one is job 3. So job 3. Now if I go to my job summary, you'll now see that job 3 is showing as estimate, and it's got some information in here. And that's just based on, so you see the overhead and labor costs is automatically getting pulled in because I've got some values in here. So if I take that out, I'll go back to job summary. So because some of that information is kind of still floating in there in the template. So I got an email address in there. But basically, that's all you have to do is make a copy of the tab, and it's going to auto pull in, and then as you fill out the tab, all this information will automatically update. And that's essentially it. Thanks for watching.